Hi everybody, I'm here with my lovely friend Jen Saunders, who is going to talk about adventure and how to bring more into your life. But really, we're talking about her adventure. Jen, for anyone who hasn't followed your journey, can you share what the Camino is and what completing 1,800 kilometers is all about?
Hello, everybody. Yes, the Camino is a spiritual pilgrimage, mostly for Catholics from all sorts of places across Europe, all ending in Santiago de Compostela, where apparently the bones of Jesus's best friend, St. James, sit in the cathedral. So it's been a pilgrimage that people have done for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I didn't do it for religious reasons. I did it because I laughingly said I needed to walk out of my old life and into my new life. But really, I just needed to take some time to spend with myself. And I wanted to do a physical adventure, a physical challenge, and have an emotional and physical adventure. And it was affordable.
1,800 kilometers, that was just, I couldn't believe it when you told me that.
Yeah, it's quite a long way. 22.9 kilometers a day on average for 83 days. It was pretty cool.
Can you paint a picture of when you arrived at Santiago? How did it feel? What did you hear? What was it like?
So it was a weird thing because Santiago is where most people are heading to. So all the routes across Europe all end up in Santiago, but Santiago was never my end point. Finisterre was my end point, which is Finisterre means end of the earth, and it meant that I'd walked across half of France and then from the Spanish border all the way across Spain, which felt like a pretty cool achievement.
Wow.
So arriving in Santiago was really mixed because, like I said, it is most people's end point, and that's what they're going to is for the cathedral at Santiago. It was much more emotional than I thought it would be. Also, I had a picture in my head of what the cathedral looks like, and it did look like that, but the square behind it, which of course you never see any photos of, was totally different to my imagination. And we arrived really early, and it turns out that most people arrive after about 10 a.m. and there's a piper piping you in, which is pretty cool. Wow. But we didn't have the piper. Luckily, I was with somebody who meant a lot to me, and we were both really emotional about being there. But actually, I was just really happy and really proud. I think all of my tears came out in the days arriving in Santiago. But actually, the day I arrived in Santiago was just like a massive achievement, and I was just full of energy and excitement and awe, actually a lot of awe. I did do a lot of crying because as I sat in the cathedral listening to the Pilgrim's Mass, I didn't really listen to the Pilgrim's Mass. I was looking at my phone because my friend had sent me loads of videos from my specialist, most gorgeous people, and I couldn't watch them in the Mass, but I was just kind of blown away that people had done that for me. And I had a kind of realization that I had walked all that way just to know how loved I was, and that was a pretty momentous thing. It felt quite I kept thinking of Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, and how he leaves the thing and travels all over the world and then comes and then gets sent back to his starting place to find his thing. Yeah. And that sort of really resonated with me quite a big way as well.
Oh, it's making me giving me goosebumps thinking about it. So what drew you to the Camino in the first place? Was it a sudden thing or a long held dream?
I first heard about the Camino about 8 years ago from an Australian girl that I met in Indonesia, and she had been through a big life change, and I think she'd spent 2 or maybe 3 weeks on the Camino, and I had liked the sound of it when she talked about it, and it was kind of in my head. And then I had planned to do it with my ex-husband, but I kind of knew it wouldn't work with him, but I wanted it anyway. I wanted it to work, but I kind of knew it wouldn't. And then when I was on my own, I knew that I wanted to take on a physical challenge, but I didn't want to do anything crazy like climb Everest, or, I mean, that's just not in my ball game. But I do love walking. I do love nature. And I felt like a really big walk would be good for me. And I felt like, as a single woman who didn't want to travel on her own, that the Camino would give me an instant access to people, so that I wouldn't have to eat on my own, and that there would be people around, and that I could walk on my own and know that I wasn't on my own, and that every town I arrived in, there would be somewhere for me to stay, and there would be people doing something similar to me. Heading off to go and do a yoga retreat in Bali was never going to be a long enough thing for me. And I wanted to meet all sorts of different people, and I knew the Camino brought all sorts of different people. And also, I wanted to meet people who were probably going to be going through similar, like, you only really walk the Camino when you're looking for answers. So we would all be in a similar place of looking for answers. So there were quite a few strands with that drew me to it as a thing that I could do as a single woman, being safe and meeting other people in similar situations.
You're in your early 50s. How did midlife play into your decision to take on something as big as this?
Massively. The preceding few years, I had watched close friends, and I had heard close friends telling me that they knew their beloved people had been diagnosed with terminal illnesses. I had worked with older people, and I had been talking to them about, the regrets in their life and the things that they hadn't done. And I had a couple of people in my world that had been planning for retirement and probably aren't going to see their retirement. And knowing that I had an opportunity to do some things before I couldn't do them physically. And also to reevaluate my life, all of that stuff that I'd gathered over the first half, and to try and make sense of it, and to try and make sense of what my next direction is. And I don't think everybody needs to do that, but I felt like the universe had chopped away so much of what I thought my life was about, that I properly needed to go, well, okay, let's have a look at this.
So did you feel that you were looking for something specific, or have you already answered this, that it was looking at the bits, editing your life, really, seeing what you wanted to keep in, seeing what you wanted to get rid of?
And I think also a big part of it was about trying to work out who I was without the noise. That the labels that we carry around for the first half of our lives, woman, mother, the job that you do, parents. There's so many roles that we kind of forget who we are outside of those roles. We introduce ourselves as, I'm Jen, I'm the mother of two, or I'm Jen, I'm married to such and such, or I'm Jen, I work with older people. And I kind of lost who I was, and really, really wanted to find who I was. And I felt that doing that in quite a stripped back, physical, materially stripped back and physically challenging environment would give me something. I didn't really ever know what it was. Everybody jokes. One of my dear friends had joked that either the baby from the Teletubbies Sky would come out and speak to me, or maybe it would be the god from the Monty Python. and that at some point the clouds would part and this God baby thing would speak to me. And I kind of hoped that there would be a sort of moment, but actually there was no big grand moment. There were lots of little moments of realization of you know, it was a real journey. It was a real journey that had ups and downs and moments of enlightenment and moments of mad depression and great highs and mediocre everythings as well.
So a real processing.
Yeah.
Of the first half of your life, really.
And I think the actual walking, I'd read a lot that the actual one foot in front of the other, the sort of meditative thing, the repetition, the just a long way to go, was quite good for your brain, and it was great. It was, you know.
So how has it changed your perspective on your life now? That's a big question, isn't it?
That's a really big question. I think I'm probably still processing quite a lot of that.
How long have you been back?
Not sure, lost track. Where are we? I got back the 9th of August.
Yeah, only about a month ago.
Yeah. I think sometimes I feel like those changes have been so gradual over the 3 months that I was away that they were sort of assimilated without me really noticing. And other changes I'm still processing. I miss the Camino more than I ever imagined I would. I liked the process of walking from A to B to C to D to E to F with just what I needed on my back. I really miss the connections that were made because the people who were on the Camino are there for whatever personal reasons they're there for. There's not that kind of, oh hi, nice to meet you, how are you, fine. You go pretty quickly, pretty deep,
straight into it.
And I remember talking to a Romanian, really nice Romanian, on one of my final few days, and saying to him, you know, imagine if we'd met at a party in London, we would never have spent 3.5 hours talking about the things that we've been talking about, and we would never know the things that we know about each other. We'd have had a drink, said hi, and that would have been it. And actually he shared some really wonderful things that I will carry with me, and we would have been ashamed to have missed that. So I think I have learnt that that everything has its positive. So like some days it was really hot and you really wished for the rain, and sometimes it was rainy and you really wished for the hot. And sometimes the view was too difficult to take on because the path was really complicated, so you could break your neck and look at the view, or you could look at the path and miss the view, or you had to stop and look at the view and then go back to looking at the path. And all of those things, we just kept talking about how they were metaphors for life, and that you know, even on the sunniest days it's not perfect. You wish for rain, and on the rainiest days you wish. So actually trying to find the beauty in everything that you've got, and trying to be appreciative, not to be appreciative of everything, but to find the silver lining, I guess, is, you know. And my daughter said to me the other day, how are you finding being home? And I said, it's difficult. And she said, well, how are you going to manage being home? And I said, I have to find the beauty in the mundane. And I think that's pretty much what the Camino's taught me. I mean,
it's hard coming down off an adventure, isn't it?
Yeah,
where everything's new, everything's stimulating, everything's, and come back, like you say, come back to the boring old dishes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cook. I didn't do any I did laundry. I didn't do any hoovering. I did a lot of laundry, but I didn't do any hoovering. I didn't do any shopping. I didn't, you know, I didn't have to arrange for the meter man to come and read the meter. It was sort of, so it was a true break from.
When I went travelling years ago now, but we were away for quite a long time, nearly a year, and I remember coming back, and we had, I don't know, 3 pairs of shorts and 3 t-shirts in our pack for all that time. And I got home and I couldn't decide. I was overwhelmed the first morning because I couldn't choose what to wear. Did you? And I just got rid of most of my wardrobe there and then that day. So did you have the same sort of thing?
No, because I really relished coming home and choosing clothes. And I mean, my friend Sarah and I would go, we would, when we got into towns, we'd be like, oh, she smells nice. Yeah. And oh, a floaty dress and a skirt and jeans. Oh, jeans would be, ballet shoes, they'd be nice. So I did get home, but I am, although I'm wearing jeans today, I'm really struggling with trousers and feeling enclosed in my legs. I am enjoying a lot of, I'm really enjoying cooking. I'm really enjoying going into supermarkets that I'm familiar with and seeing all sorts of lovely food. So there's lots of things that I'm enjoying being home about, but I've missed the big views, and I've missed not knowing where I am. Like, I know where I am round here, and I never knew where I was. Like, I could see me on a map, and I knew I had some accommodation, but I never, like, I'd book accommodation, but I never knew what I was going to. And I kind of like turning up and going, oh, so this is where I'm staying tonight then. Is there a supermarket around here? Do I need to, where am I going to eat? I kind of liked.
Perhaps the unpredictability of it.
Yeah. And I guess it was a safe unpredictability because it's a town, there's a hostel, there are other people in your predicament. So that there's a sort of safety in that as well. It's an interesting thing, that sort of safety and unpredictability, and that's sort of how the Camino felt, a lot safe but unpredictable.
Yeah, I get that.
Because lots of people are doing things.
So what was a typical day like on the Camino?
It was really simple. It was get up, get dressed, walk, stop for a snack, walk, stop for lunch, walk, stop, go to the hostel, unpack your entire bag, wash yourself, wash your clothes, dry your clothes, feed yourself, catch up on life admin, go to bed, get up, rinse and repeat. every single day.
Fantastic.
And often, most days, you would look at your contents of your bag and wonder what you could get rid of.
Playing into my next question, which is, what was in your backpack that you couldn't have done without?
Well, interestingly, the very first night stop in France, the hosts there were brilliant, and they had an entire unit with drawers of stuff that people had let go of on their first night, because they'd set off with this backpack and then they walk all day with it and go, I don't need all this stuff, I can't carry all this stuff. So by the time I got to Spain, I pretty much knew that everything in my backpack I couldn't do without. I had a couple of interesting things. So by the time I got to Spain and the weather was fairly constant, I had 2 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of socks, 2 skirts, 2 t-shirts, a raincoat, and a long sleeve top, and leggings. So clothes wise, that was it. Every day I wish I could make my wash bag smaller, but you've got to have a first aid kit. There's some, and then I had a shampoo bar that was my body soap, my shampoo, and I washed my clothes in it. Wow. Occasionally there would be a washing machine and I would put everything into the washing machine, but only if it was dry, because otherwise you could just go to wet clothes. And every night, so I had a day skort and a day t-shirt and a night skort and a night t-shirt, and that was it. Yeah, so that was the same dinner. But there was a weird thing. So when I started, I set off with nail varnish on, and I don't really wear nail varnish at home, but my daughter had said to me, take nail varnish, Mum, it's a fun thing to do in the evenings. And I had kind of thought it would be quite cool to do a physical adventure and still be a bit girly, and nail varnish seemed like the only real thing I could do. And I noticed very quickly, so I met my friend Sarah on the very first night after we'd started walking, and we ended up walking most of it together. And I noticed that people would ask Sarah how far she was walking, and she would say she was going to Saint-Jean. And then she would say, but Jen's going to Finistère. And they would look at me, and they'd look at my nails, and they'd look back up at me and say, that's a very long way, you know. And I became really aware. And then I had a couple of days where I didn't have nail varnish on, and people didn't say that to me. And I became really aware of the judgment that people made based on my nail varnish. And then I was like, right, I'm wearing nail varnish the whole way there. And I did. And I had a couple of women say to me, I can't believe you've got nail varnish on. And then I would explain why. And they were like, wow, really? Defiance. That's amazing. Yeah, there was a bit of like, fuck you.
Go strong women.
Yeah. And I'm still going to be feminine about this. And people would, I mean, my nails were ruined from wearing it. And then I would, I'd say, oh, it's nail varnish night tonight. And I would take it all off and put it on again. And a couple of people, why are you bothering?
Sweet. I love that story.
Yeah, it's good.
I love it. Just being powerful and feminine at the same time.
Yeah, I can be both of those things.
How did your body cope with the physical challenge of it? Were there moments when you thought you couldn't keep going?
The very first morning, the second morning, so the night I'd met Sarah, I woke up in the morning and she was on a bed across the room from me, and I went, do we really have to do that all over again? And she said, you can't say that on day 2. And I was like, oh, but I don't know how to. And she kept saying, well, you're going to get fitter, you're going to get fitter. And for most of France, I didn't feel like I was getting fitter. And actually for a big chunk most of France, she was adamant that I was getting fitter because she said I was still talking as I was going up the hills. So I must have been getting fitter. And she also said we're walking faster. So I was getting fitter, but we were pushing harder. And then for the first few weeks of Spain, I walked on my own a lot. And because I was walking on my own a lot, I was processing a lot of stuff and thinking about stuff much more. So emotionally, that was really challenging. So I didn't really notice my fitness. And then nearer the end, Lady Susan came out and joined with me, and she really wanted to do some long days, and we did 25k every day. So in France, we did 25k most days, and I found it quite battering. And then when Susan came out, I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do 25k days. But actually we did 25k days and it was fine. And then my days got longer as I neared the end. And I realised that I was actually really quite a lot fitter than I thought I was. And my final day, I did 43 kilometres. And if you had said to me that I would walk 43 kilometres in a day and still be bouncing, and I started that day, I started walking at 6 a.m. and I finished what I was doing. And I mean, it wasn't the walk to Finistère. I walked to Finistère and then up to the lighthouse and then back to the accommodation and then out for lunch and then out for dinner and then over to the beach and then back to the beach and all of that. So it was a lot of walking, but I didn't finish until midnight, and I was just buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. And then I looked at my watch and was like, I walked 43k today. I would never. But I kind of, and then I got up the next day and was like, right, let's go. So it didn't kill me like 25k a day in France had done. So I realised I was much stronger.
And didn't you have a point though where was it your knee or your ankle or something you hurt and you had to stop for a bit?
No, I got food poisoning.
Oh, That was it.
Yeah, we went to a really nice seafood restaurant and I got food poisoning. Not quite food poisoning. I had something disagreed with me and I was not well. And then I spent 2 days, I rented an Airbnb for 2 nights because I really wanted to come home then. And then the next day I walked 15k just around the town I was staying in to sort of see if I was actually ready. And I was really ready. So yeah, that was the only thing. I had some knee issues, but a bit of taping and I was good to go again.
So what was the hardest moment of the entire journey and how did you cope?
The hardest moment was one I would never, ever have imagined would be the hardest moment, but it was leaving Santiago to go to Finisterre. It was the next morning. So I'd walked into Santiago with my friend and he was going back to Madrid that day and I was going on to Finisterre. And so I'd had walking companions, like good friends with me for 3 of the previous 4 weeks. And he was going off and I knew I had to go to Finisterre. I really wanted to go home because I'd had all these videos from my people at home that made me just really want to come home. And I didn't. I was really sad that my friend was going. I really didn't think I wanted to walk on my own, and my socks were damp.
Oh, yes.
And getting up that morning, putting on damp socks, packing my bag and walking out of the monastery that I was staying in and walking off on my own was just like, ugh. And I don't know. I mean, I think knowing that I knew deep in my bones that I had to finish what I'd started and that Finisterre had always been my end point, I knew I had to do it. And that was it.
Yeah.
You just dig deep and go, suck it up.
Yeah.
You like, nobody's forcing you to do this. I knew that if I didn't do it, I would at some point, probably about this point, a month after I got home, I would be like, why didn't I finish? Why I should have finished. Why didn't I finish? So I knew I had to do it, and it was exactly the right thing. It was brilliant, but it was tough.
So were there moments on the walk that felt magical or spiritual, or were there some times when you felt that Teletubby sun coming out?
There were lots of magical moments. I mean, there was take your breath away scenery. And there were lots of magical moments. So one of the things that people always say on the Camino is that the Camino provides. And it's one of those really funny things that everybody's quite skeptical of. And then when you've just spent a decent time on the Camino, you kind of think the Camino does provide. And even Sarah and I would joke about, God, it's really hot. I could do with a bit of a breeze. And then we'd get over the top of the hill and there would be a really nice cooling breeze, or we'd get over the top of the hill and we'd walk into the shade, or, there was always that. There were quite often, there were those funny little moments that we would joke about, and then she'd say something about having a broken ankle and I'd be like, no, don't say that, no, Camino, we don't want a broken ankle, because we were a bit fearful of that.
Right.
But I think there were lots of tiny magical moments and lots of big magical moments. One of my favourite magical moments was climbing the day into walking into Bilbao is really, really hard day, because you leave the town you're in and you go straight up a hill, and then you come straight down the other side, and then you go along a river basin, and then you go up a steep hill and then down into Bilbao. And both of those hills up and down are quite hard. And it was really, really hot that day. We were in the middle of a heat wave, so it was sort of 38 degrees. And a lot of the path, the trees had been cut down, because there's lots of a lot of the trees had been cut down. And I got to the top of the second hill before you go down into Bilbao, and it was absolutely boiling, and the path was a really difficult path because it had obviously been really wet and large vehicles had churned up the ground, and then it had dried solid in these ruts and stuff, boiling hot. And as I got to the top of the path, there was a bench in the shade, and I was like, the Camino provides a bench in the shade. And as I was walking to the bench in the shade, I was thinking, I'm not sure how much water I've got left, because I had a camel pack thing. And I was thinking I could really do with a cold drink, and I'm a bit anxious about my water and how much I've got to get into Bilbao. And I walked up to the bench and I sat down on the bench and I just looked up, and in front of me was a vending machine with ice cold drinks in it. I was like,
it's magical.
And I had change. That's and I went to the vending machine and I got a freezing cold can of Coke and just sat there going, the Camino provides. It was hilarious. So yeah,
so how
magical.
Did you have to take all the water for the day with you?
In France you could fill up a lot, and in Spain, I mean, lots of people took much smaller bottles, and then you fill up at restaurants and stuff along the way.
Okay, yeah.
You know, the restaurants are very good about filling up your water as long as you get a drink or whatever from them. There are some sections where you have to take your water for the day because there's very few towns.
Because it's a long way to walk on not a lot of water in 30-something degrees.
Yeah. I mean, I was carrying 1.5 litres of water a day, but also I think your body adapts. I mean, the first few days I must have eaten so many thousands of calories. And then you stop being so hungry. And then, you know, by the end of it, I was back to having 2 meals a day and not being that hungry. And I worked really hard at walking with my mouth shut, because when you mouth breathe, you lose a lot more fluid. So I tried really hard to walk with my mouth shut. So yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, the Camino is known for unexpected encounters, which you've brushed on. Did you meet anyone who left a lasting impact?
I met 2 people who made very lasting impact and have become friends for life.
Brilliant.
And that was really special. And I met lots of other people that when you say things like that, these people ping into my mind.
How do you choose? Yeah.
And some of them for tiny, small things, and some of them because of what they said. There was a lovely Belgian girl who's an artist, and I ended up going to the Guggenheim in Bilbao with her, and she said something. I'm like not really that big on modern art, but you know, you're in Bilbao, you got to go to the Guggenheim, so that's fine. And as we walked in, there was this really weird, amazing installation. And she said to me, the good thing about modern art is that it doesn't matter what you think, it's all about what you feel in your body. I was like, oh. And that totally changed the whole experience. And we ended up spending about 4.5 hours in there. And we spent, there was one art installation that we watched 3 or 4 times over, because it was, and also that was quite a fun thing because I was in a museum on my own. I wasn't herding children, I wasn't managing friends or family or husbands. I just got to do what I wanted, and I spent as long as I wanted at pictures, or as short as I wanted at pictures. And this one installation was this sort of film. It was a CGI film using not CGI, AI film using AI. And I just said to Feline, I want to lie on the floor, and she went, oh good, me too. And we lay down on the floor to watch it, and everyone else was sitting or standing, and we were totally immersed in this thing. And when we sat up, everybody around us had laid down as well. It's like, oh good. So yeah, lots of people.
Did you have any Camino revelations? So a clear insight that came out of nowhere?
Yes, I did. I couldn't tell you what they are now, but I absolutely remember stopping with my poles and just being like, oh, oh, okay. wow, and then setting
Right.
off again.
Right.
So yeah, quite a few of those.
And were there fears that you left behind?
So it was really interesting. I thought, you know, my kind of jokey thing about walking out of my old life and into my new life, I thought that I would leave fears and griefs and emotions and stuff behind. I thought that's what it was about, was putting space between myself and those things. And actually I realized along the way that I wasn't letting those things go. And what I was learning to do was to own them and assimilate them and carry them with love and respect, I think, really, and to respect that they are part of me and that I'm never going to let them go, but that I have to learn how to hold them in a way that makes me feel safe and strong and yeah. And I think also, you know, I've done counselling for myself. I've been trained in counselling and all sorts of stuff, and I know grief and I understand the principles of grief and what it looks like on paper, and I've experienced grief. But I think this was about me embodying the knowledge and knowing that grief is never gone. You learn you learn to live your day, each day, with it, and that it can come back at any moment, and it can take you down in the moments that you least expect it to. And I think having a I've always known that, but somehow I learnt to embody that, and that it's okay when it takes you down, because it's like a wave that comes crashing over you, takes you down and rolls you around in the surf for a bit, but eventually it spits you out and you dust yourself off and okay, I'm good to go again. That's and I think nice that was I think that was learning to really embody that rather than just knowing it in your like brain somehow.
I really like that wave analogy.
Yeah, and I think the walking thing, you know, I would walk and tears and grief would come, and I would keep walking and I would let it go, and then suddenly I'd be like, oh, I've stopped crying.
Pass through it, walk through it. Yeah.
So that was I think that was probably my most obvious learning. And yeah, I thought that I would leave stuff behind, but actually I've learned to embrace it as just the big picture of me. So that was something I never expected.
Yeah, what a legacy. So beyond Santiago and Finisterre, so many people stop at Santiago. What made you go on? Why did you want to go on to Finisterre?
Because I don't know really. It was just that I think there were a few things. So Finisterre was one of the things on the shipping news.
Oh yes,
that I always remember. My dad wrote a book about going to all the places in the shipping news, so that kind of had sort of pulled me in. Also, because it wasn't a religious pilgrimage to me, Santiago and getting to the cathedral, that wasn't the thing for me. And one of the reasons that I did the route that I did was because I love the sea, and I wanted. So in the old days when they did the Camino and they went to Santiago, they would often go to Finisterre because they thought that was the end of the world, and they would watch the sun go down into the sea, and they thought the sun was falling off the edge of the world kind of thing. And that kind of analogy, I don't know, there was something in there about getting to the end of the world and starting again. The old pilgrims used to go there and get a scallop shell, and then they would walk back, because of course they didn't then get on a Vueling flight from Santiago to Gatwick and pop home again. They then had to walk home
all the way back.
Which when I got to Finisterre I was a bit like, oh, I quite fancy doing that now.
So that's why there were scallop shells.
The scallop shells, yeah, that would prove that they had gone there.
Got it.
And
because
then
there are markers on the way, aren't there? Yeah.
And then the scallop shell would be the thing that they would carry back with them
to prove that
they'd done it. So we now carry the scallop shell there and back, or there, but they would do it on the way back. So that's where the scallop shell came from.
So what was it like to stand at the end of the world?
It was really overwhelming. It was a really weird thing because I was on my own, and there are just things that are harder to do on your own, like take photos of you
yes.
at the end of the peninsula. And so there's another thing on the Camino where you carry stones that I had drawn on my stones or written on my stones. And some people just hold them and carry them. And there's a thing about carrying that weight and then getting to the end and then throwing them into the sea, and you're throwing whatever that weight is that you're trying to get rid of. And I really liked the idea of doing that. And I got to the end. So the lighthouse at Finisterre is sort of the end. It's actually not the westernmost point, but it's quite an amazing. But it's a sort of rocky outcrop that you can't really throw a stone off into the sea because there's a long way between you and the sea because there's all these rocks. And I couldn't really get a photo of myself at the end. And eventually, the final zero marker, I got a nice Frenchman to take a couple of photos. But I sat there for ages just watching people, because there's loads of day trippers there, and sort of, that kind of part of me wanted to go, I've walked 1,850 kilometres. And the other part of me was like, and none of you know. You will just think I smell bad and I'm just here for the day. And, there were so many mixed emotions. And then I left. I did manage to find a spot where I could throw a couple of my stones, but it wasn't really what I wanted. And I had wanted to watch the sun go down on the beach, and I knew that there was a beach that the sun went down on. And I went back to the hostel, and I ended up going out for dinner with an American guy. And I don't think he kind of realised how important it was to me to see the sun go down. And we meandered back from dinner, and I foolishly had not checked what time the sun set. So, and then when we tried to get there, the route wasn't as direct as I thought it had been. Anyway, it was a catalogue of things, but as always, the universe provides, Camino provides. We got there just as everybody was leaving, which was awesome because we basically had the beach to ourselves. There were probably 4 other people on the beach, and I had missed the sun slipping behind the sea, but I got to watch the most amazing sunset, the most amazing sky afterwards. And I was on the FaceTime to my friend who I'd gone into Santiago with, and I threw some of my stones and a stone for him into the sea, and that was all. It was really poignant, and there was this howling wind, and it just all felt like it couldn't have been any more perfect had I tried. The tide was out, so there were lots of shimmery bits along the beach, and the water was freezing, and it was awesome. It was awesome. It was the most amazing feeling, and yeah, it was really cool.
It worked out perfectly.
It was really cool.
This is often the way. So, the aftermath. How did it feel to come back after such a life-changing experience?
Confusing is probably the first word I'd come up with. Every bone in my body wanted to be at home. So when I left Finisterre, I took the bus back to Santiago, and I had an afternoon in Santiago, which is actually a really lovely old town. And then I had a night. I went out for dinner with a really nice Italian girl I'd met, and an Irish guy who was a friend of hers. And then the next morning I got up and got on the bus to the airport. And the day I took the bus out of Finisterre, I was very aware that I wasn't walking and that I already missed walking. And that was a bit of a shock. I got the plane home. I got home, and quite a few of my favourite people weren't around, so that was quite hard. but my first night out was joyous. And within 10 minutes of seeing Susan, she persuaded me to do another one next year.
Excellent.
Which I didn't expect. So yeah, confusing, because I was really pleased to be home. I'm really pleased to be home. I'm really pleased to be able to see my kids, my favourite people, my dad. I'm really pleased that everybody's within. But my body misses walking and still misses walking. And walking, I haven't tried to do a long walk because I've not really felt like I know where to walk to. And the sense of doing a circular route, there's a bit of me that feels a bit like, and a part of me is a bit cross, like, just go and walk, it's fine, you can do a circular route, it's fine. And the other part of me is like, no, that's not how I like to walk. So I'm having sort of mini tantrums with myself.
Deciding.
Yeah. So yeah, because I didn't think I would want to go back to it. And of course, there are elements that I don't want to go back to. And there are elements that I'd like to stay here. So I've been trying to do some things to remind me of that, which I can't think of at the moment. But yeah, just trying to find moments. Also, I wear a cross that I bought in the cathedral, and I found myself holding that to sort of ground, like, I did do it. I did it. Because it's almost really easy to forget that I've done it.
Yeah.
And, 1,800 kilometres is 1,150 miles. It's a long way. And like, now I'm here and it's all just normal again. And I find myself holding it, not because it's a cross. I didn't really want a cross, but because I got that in Santiago. And there's a photo of me on the Finisterre beach, which I look at regularly, just in that, like, oh yeah, you did it. You did do it. So yeah, it's a weird
funny thing, isn't it? Because life goes on here.
Yeah.
And anybody that goes, even on a holiday, people can't relate to it because they weren't there, of course.
Yeah.
No one was there. No one's experiencing with you. So that you come back, it's like nothing's changed at all.
Yeah.
But have things changed in your day-to-day life? Do you do things differently? Or, has it
I'm
changed?
lucky enough that I haven't come back and had to go straight back into a sort of normal life. I'm still on adventures and travelling, and I'm still travelling until the beginning of December. I've got various trips here and there. So I'm really grateful that I didn't have to come back and go straight back into normal life. I think it was really interesting. My dad said to me, so are you loving being home? And I went, no, not really. And he went, oh, what's the matter? And I said, I'm really struggling with normal. And he went, oh yeah, I should have told you about that. Because it turns out that my dad did he sailed across the Pacific on a tall ship when he was the same age as me. And he said, yeah, you sort of can't come back and do normal now. Normal isn't, that's not going to work for you. So I was like, oh, you could have told me that before I went, Dad, thanks. He was like, I kind of forgot.
Yeah, but of course it wouldn't have meant anything to you anyway.
So I think everything's changed because I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
And I don't think, it's not like I'm not a totally different person, but you can't do something like that and not change. That's, for me, that's one of the sort of the things about traveling, whether it's a week or a year, is that you can't go on an adventure and push yourself out of your comfort zone and not change within yourself. And some of those changes will be really, really subtle, but some of them are much bigger. And I don't really know how I'm going to do normal. And I laugh because, one of the things about normal that does my head in is that routine. And I remember saying on the Camino to Sarah and my other friend, like the Camino is all about routine. We do the same, like literally the same thing every day, but it's punctuated by being in a different place every day. And, for a long time, I've tried really hard to be normal and to be comfortable with normal, but I realise that I like movement, I like change, I like different. I find it really hard to drive down the same road every day and not be like, oh God. And I'm trying to witness the seasons in the same road and enjoy the change within that one road.
Yeah.
But I do find, I find the lack of, I guess it's changing views. I like being in different places. So that's going to be a challenge.
Maybe there's an element of being confined as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a glorious view of nature outside my windows, but I do feel like I feel like, what were they called in Surbiton, in suburbia, the Good Life.
The Good Life.
I feel that's sort of like everybody's Margot, and
yes, and I'm not. You're Barbara, wasn't it?
And I'm Barbara with my wellies on, going, no, don't make me put a dress on.
I love that. All right, so if someone's listening and dreaming of doing their own Camino, what would be your best piece of advice?
Choose something that's challenging but not too challenging, because you don't want to be fearful all the time. And whilst the actual Camino was the right thing for me, other people have other Caminos. So, for instance, a friend of mine who was going through quite a lot of change at the same time as me, his Camino was to cycle up Mont Ventoux 3 times in one day, and to do something called the Fred Whitten Challenge, which is some other crazy cycling thing. So we've all got our own thing, that to me just makes me go, no. But also to him, me walking every day was like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
So I think, we all have our own thing that would be an adventure and a challenge. My dad sailing across the Pacific was an adventure and a challenge. So some people, it's not in their world. They're very content with what their world is. A lot of women in their midlife are like, I've got stuff I've got to do, and go do it. Like, plan it. Don't put too much on it. Try not to, if I do this, then I will feel that, is not a good way to go on an adventure. I think if you're going to do an adventure, you have to go, I'm going to do this and see what happens.
So it's stepping out onto the path.
And allowing the path to give you.
And then another step.
Yeah.
And then another step.
Yeah. I mean, the Camino's great for that, because it is step by step. But, if you're a sailor and you want to go sailing, do whatever steps you need to do with that, so that it's your adventure. Own it, love it, make it yours, and don't have too many expectations. Just allow yourself to grow into your adventure, I think, is probably
such good advice. Love
what
that.
I would say.
Is there one moment from your journey that you'll carry forever?
Oh, that made me very emotional.
Oh, sorry. Well done.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Crikey. I mean, and that's, it's because it moves you. It's moving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You have
it's
moved.
I've moved. Yeah.
Shifted.
I mean, physically, emotionally, mentally, my body shape's changed.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And I know that my brain shape has changed.
Ah.
All of, like, it's it's an achievement, mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, all of those things.
Yeah.
Japan for another walk later on this year.
Nice.
There is a Camino, a World Heritage Camino in Japan, but that's very hard to get onto, and I missed the restrict numbers. But there's an 88 temple pilgrimage, so I'm going to do about the first 30 temples on that. And then next year I'm currently planning it, but next year I'm launching my own business.
Excited. That is an adventure.
It is an adventure, and it's a thing I'm excited about. I definitely feel like it's an adventure, but I'm also struggling with the fact that it will keep me here. And actually, what I'd like to do is just keep traveling.
Keep moving.
Just keep traveling. And I'm really grateful that I've got a home to come home to, and I've got roots and friends and family to come home to. But I really like moving. I really like traveling. I really like it. And I think, you know, for a lot of my life, I've tried to fit into the box of, oh yeah, but that's not real life. You can't travel. It's, you know, that's not real.
Yeah.
And now I kind of think, actually, I need to make this my real life. I need to earn an income. But I need to make travel part of my life.
How can I do that?
Yeah. And how am I going to do those things? How am I going to weave the life that I want, and, you know, make those choices?
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes that will mean that I will have to take trips where I stay in hostels and share dormitories with annoying snoring people and people who flip-flop their flip-flops, flipping and flopping up and down the dormitory at 5 a.m. But, you know, if that means that I can go off and do things, then that's how I have to do it.
That's come full circle, hasn't it? Because we were talking about things you've learned in your life, and now it's literally editing what you've learned in your life. Or what I've got space to think about. What do I want? And yeah, it sounds like you've done the child rearing, you've done the whatever that was, and now you are free to.
And I think it's really important, the midlife crisis that we're turning into editing is, we have choices. We all have choices, and we can choose to carry on with the life that we're comfortable with because we know and it's safe, and we may or may not be happy in it, or we can choose to craft a life. And it's hard to craft your life. It's hard to step out of the normal. It's hard to do something different. But I think that's one of the gifts that we get given at this age, particularly as women, is our hormones change to allow us to say, actually, no,
Yes.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Yes.
And actually, I want a bit more of that.
Yeah.
And I will get. This isn't a dress rehearsal.
Yes.
This is it. At some point, it's over. And this is all we've had. So it's worth the effort to craft the life that you want, however uncomfortable it is to get there. Because this is the only one we've got.
Nice. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing so many intimate moments. It's so lovely to hear your story in such detail. You know, having a conversation, normally you don't go into people's holiday details, do you? You know, it's just, but that was real privilege. Thank you.
It's really special to be able to share it. Thank you for asking me all those questions and helping me relive it. Buen camino.
And on that, thank you.
Thanks.